Good evening, everybody. So welcome to this community meeting of the Liqo project. I'm going to share my screen with a small, very small agenda, but we have to be agile. So agenda is a short status of the project, where we are now. Then a few updates, especially on the network optimizations, and we have two people here, Santo and Gabriele, who are working on this issue. Date of the next meeting, and then any other business if you are interested in other questions. So if you agree, we start with the state of the project, and then I give the floor to Francesco Torta with the patch release that we should release soon. Francesco.
Thank you. Yeah, we are planning to release a new patch release. It will be 1.0.1, and it mostly includes some minor bugs fixing, so nothing breaking, nothing that change anything important. But to be more specific, we added the support for the new major version of Argo CD, specifically 3.0 that was released in this period. We also fixed something about declarative peering that was crashing the gateway pod if you were setting the gateway secret. And for last, some minor permission issue related to the in-band peering. So also that should work better now. And so these are the major fixes we did. I think that's it, Fulvio.
Perfect. Any question about this from the other people? No? So the next step should be the next release. And by the way, we realized that the roadmap is still pointing out to 1.0. So definitely we need to update the roadmap file. This is an action point for us. The next release is expected probably in September, October. Who is going to spend a few words on it? Maybe Alessandro? Just because I think we didn't define exactly what to put, but
no, it's not. It doesn't have a feature freeze for now, but we can add other feature if we need it. At the moment, we plan to release in the new Liqo minor version 1.1. We plan to release some API addition in order to make it possible to add some firewalling rules in the Liqo gateway and in the Liqo Fabric. At the moment, this API will not be used internally by Liqo, but we are simply adding this support. So anyone wants to create its own controllers to enforce some policy can easily do it. And it's the main thing we are planning to release. I think that in the next community meeting can be the main discussion point, this new feature, and it's all.
any questions? No? So let's move to the next item in the agenda. We have some people working on network optimization for Liqo. Actually, Santo Calderone already presented a couple of months ago, but his feature, he says, is completed, his part. So we would like to have an update from Santo. And then the feature from Santo is being extended by Gabriele. So we give the floor to Gabriele for another presentation that covers what was missing with the feature done by Santo. So, Santo, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good evening to everyone. I don't remember where I lived last time, so I will start with a quick recap. And
sorry, do you have another microphone from my headset on computer because it's a little bit noisy.
Ooh, 1 second. It's better now?
No.
No. I don't know why, because I'm with my my Bluetooth headphones. Usually they work good.
It's like there is some type of interference.
Okay, but okay, I can the web camera. It's better now.
Or maybe it is saturating the mic.
No, I think not. No, okay, but if we cannot resolve, you can talk, and we try to.
Okay, I don't know. I don't know how to resolve it.
Otherwise, you can switch to the phone just for the microphone. I don't know.
Okay. Okay. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's really good.
So I'm starting with sharing the presentation. Are you seeing it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is the standard topology. We have a consumer class. 1 second, because I want to mute myself. Okay. No, I can do it. Okay. So a standard topology with a consumer cluster in pairing with 2 provider clusters that are, in this case, the name is not shown, but we can call them Europe Rome and Europe Milan. So this direct connection was created using the Liqo capsule network connect command. But even if it is present, the consumer cluster is not aware about it because it was created from the provider cluster. So the traffic that should be routed from a pod in this provider to one in this other provider will follow this route that pass through the consumer cluster. So what are the main drawbacks of this configuration? That, of course, the Liqo capsule network command should be run in one of the foreign cluster. And the consumer cluster is not aware of this connection, so their routing cannot be optimized. So the proposed architecture that I introduced the last time was to introducing a CR and a controller in the consumer cluster. The CR, inside the CR, there are specified the 2 foreign clusters that we want to connect, and all the network configuration that are necessary to create the WireGuard tunnel. While the operator watch this custom resource and will create or delete the tunnel accordingly. So the topology will become like this. The operator and the CR are created inside the consumer cluster, and the direct tunnel is in green to emphasize the fact that is created starting from the controller. The main benefits are that the management of this link is centralized, and the main cluster has visibility of this new shortcut. Obviously, this leads to the future optimization like custom routing and so on, that will be discussed from Gabriele later on. So what are the main introductions? Are the CRD, foreign cluster connection, this operator, and a dedicated CLI to simplify the user experience, obviously. The foreign cluster connection is something like this, where we specify the two foreign clusters that we want to connect directly, and some network specification that are used from the operator to build this tunnel, that are the standard configuration that use the run connect function in the networking library of Liqo. When the connection is established, there is also a status field. This is an example of a foreign cluster of connection after the connection. And the status field describes if the connection, the phase of the connection, if the two clusters are connected, and the pod siders that should be in contact to interact with the other cluster. The operator is triggered by the creation or deletion of DCR. On creation, it automatically fetches the kube configs from the secret of Liqo, establishes the WireGuard tunnel, and updates the status in the CR. While on deletion, it tears down the tunnel and deletes all the related CRs and components. Well, the CLI is obviously to simplify the user experience, and there are commands to deploy and uninstall the controller, to create the foreign cluster connection, so the CR, only specifying the two clusters that we want to connect, and some networking options. And these allow to remove to make zero the typos that could be made creating the CR by hand. So these are the main features of the design that I've proposed. So I will start with a small demo to make you better understand what are all this work, and then we can wait for some questions if there are any. Okay, so I already prepared a base topology with a consumer cluster pairing with two leaf clusters that are.
Just a question. Can you just zoom a bit your font?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
better now? Okay.
Yeah. For me, it's enough.
Okay. We look at the info here. So we have the main cluster that is Europe Cloud, pairing with Euro Romedge, Euro Milan Edge, and Euro Romedge. Actually, there is a little trick that we need to perform before using the operator, that is installing a cluster role inside the two leaf clusters because to give the operator the necessary permissions to create the tunnel, because actually there is not a proper service account to do so. That will be implemented later on. This is only for testing purposes. So I'll ls. Okay, so Liqo cloud.slash foreign cluster. No. Cluster role in config Milan Liqo underscore Milan add. So the problem.
There's a typo in kubectl.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know what it zoom out every time I type something. So Liqo. And then in Milan. Okay, and now we can use the CLI. So Liqo shortcut manager install manager. Okay, this will create the manager inside the Europe Cloud. Second. Okay, we have the Liqo shortcut manager. That I will show the logs in order to show what happens during the connection. Okay, and now we can create the connection between first I'll show you that there is no gateway between Rome and Milan. So we can use Liqo shortcuts, create a Europe Rome edge, Europe Milan edge. Okay, like me. Okay, and I'll start to creating the connection. I'll show you in Rome, but in a few seconds the gateway should be ready. Okay, there is a gateway that is connected to Milan. And obviously, these commands are idempotent. So if I try to recreate the connection, it says that there is already a connection. And now the pods can communicate through the direct link, obviously in a manual way. Now after me, Gabriele will show you how we updated the endpoint slices, I think, to automate this operation.
Thank you very much, Santo. Just for the completeness of the minutes, can you just point me the two links of the two repos so that I can include them in the minutes? Thank you.
Yeah, I already posted in the Liqo channel, but these are okay. 1 second.
Okay, but you can do it offline. So, Gabriele, please.
Hey, hi everybody. I have a little noise in my microphone. I think it's my fan because it's really hot, you know. And you can hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Gabriele, and this is the second part of the network optimization feature we are implementing together with Santo. And this is the second part related to making the traffic flow through the shortcut, because let me take a laser pointer. This is the topology presented by Santo, and I just changed the names to have numbers. So cluster 1 is the consumer and the two providers, which I maybe call leaves. So we have the peerings and we have the shortcuts with the shortcut, which is represented by the CR in the central cluster. So far, we have a problem. Yes, we can push the CR, the shortcut, directly from the central cluster, but the traffic to and from cluster 2 and cluster 3 still goes through cluster 1. So we need to make it flow through the shortcut, okay? Luckily, the kind Liqo developers already set up everything, almost everything for us, because CIDRs are already allocated and routes are pushed when the shortcut is created using the LiqoCTL network connect, which is used by the controller we implemented. That's something to implement. So we have almost everything set up. The gateway are created and the routes are present. So we just need to make the pods use them. Just a few words on the addresses. What happens right now is that, as you already know, remapping is a feature in Liqo used to represent the direction of the traffic. So in case the local pod is shared between more than one cluster, which is this case, all the three clusters are using 10.200.0.0/16 as their local pod CIDR. They seize them with a different prefix, but the same host part. So cluster 1 sees the pod deployed on cluster 3 with 10.633.0.160, and cluster 3 sees the one deployed in cluster 1 with 10.62.0.151. I'm stressing the fact that the host part is the same because we will need it later. The curious part is that the long path, which is used right now by services, is represented with a different host part because it uses the external CIDR of cluster 1, in particular because it needs some more routing before going to the destination. So every cluster has its own point of view. Okay, let's focus now on endpoint slices. Right now, endpoint slices, although we have a shortcut, it still displays the address, the wrong address. Let's say it's not wrong, but it's the one belonging to the long route. We just need to replace this address, which is this one of the long path, with the shortcut path. As I already said, this address is already present. We just need the endpoint slice to write this on its own. Okay, we have two endpoint slices because one is referred to the local one and is allocated automatically by Kubernetes. Okay, so services get the endpoints from the endpoint slice. So we need to tackle the problem regarding the endpoint slice reflection. This is just a schema I wrote to explain how is endpoint slices reflection working. The presentation will be public, so you can read it afterwards. I don't think it's good to point this out, but what I want to point out is the idea behind this work. So leveraging the foreign cluster connection CR that now we have in the central cluster, what we have is the names of the cluster involved in the shortcut, together with two important siders, which are this one, the first one, flagged with the pod sider, which represent how the central cluster sees the other end of the shortcut. So in this case, cluster A is represented by cluster 2. So this field represents how cluster 1 sees cluster 3 and vice versa. Okay. The other cider is the cider used by the shortcut. Why are these important? Because we can change how the addresses are reflected now. Because now central cluster can identify which are the addresses involved in a reflection, involved in a shortcut when reflecting the endpoint slice, and it can remap before they do on its own. So the idea is that the central cluster sends already the final address to the clusters, and they should not remap it, should not translate it, so they can use directly the address of the shortcut. So this is where I operated. At this point, what I did was simply look at the foreign cluster connection resource, which involves the cluster I am reflecting to, I as a virtual kubelet, because this happens in the virtual kubelet, and I modified the virtual kubelet of Liqo. So what can happen here is that the central cluster identifies the address, remaps it using the cider from the foreign cluster connection CR, using the host part that it already knows because the central cluster has full visibility of the topology. So it knows the host part of the pod target. So the endpoint slice is created, and these addresses are flagged in the label of the endpoints of the shadow endpoint slice, which is reflected to the other clusters. This is important because, as we said, remapped address do not need translation. So automatically Liqo would remap all the addresses present in the shadow endpoint slice to build its own endpoint slice. But if we flag the right addresses in the label, it's easy for us when a cluster receives a shadow endpoint slice to not translate it and enforce that address to build the right address. That's it. I added some links. If you have some suggestion and for further details on the implementation, this is my fork of Liqo. I'm gonna link to you this presentation as a PDF, and I can give you a little demo of that. So, okay. So, can you see the screen again? Okay.
Yes.
So this is K9S. I have already the foreign cluster connection representing the connection between cluster 2 and cluster 3. This is the context of cluster 1. So I have our pods, which are simply Nginx with some tools inside. And as we can see, one is deployed on cluster 1, one on cluster 2, and one on cluster 3. Okay. Right now, we do not have a service for them. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is to expose them. Okay. Just exposing them through a service of type cluster IP. Okay. Now, as we can see, we have the service. Okay. And these are the endpoint slices on cluster 1, which are the right one. They do not be on a shortcut. And here are the endpoint slices on cluster 2. As I mentioned, now we have 10.61.0.160, which is cluster 3. I don't know if you recall the picture, but I can let you know the right addresses. Okay, so this is .160 is the pod deployed on cluster 3, and .196 is the pod deployed on cluster 2. So the fact that is .160 and not .17 means that it's on the shortcut. This is the flag in the label I was talking about. This allows the controller manager to not remap the address and leave it like as it is. So now we expose the service, and to make it work, we already have the service. Now, what's going on? If the shortcut is used, all the traffic between cluster 2 and cluster 3 would pass from the gateways connected from cluster 2 to cluster 3. So here, in the context of cluster 3, we put a TCP dump on both the gateways, one with cluster 1 and one with cluster 2, so that we can point out when the request is passing through one of the two. Okay. So put a TCP dump. TCP port 80. This is listening. Sorry, because I have okay. And again, 1. This was on cluster 1. Okay, so if the traffic would pass from cluster 1, like the long route, sorry, I would see some traffic here. Otherwise, if the shortcut is used, I would see some traffic here. Okay. TCP, sorry, yes, TCP port 80. Okay, so now I'm gonna access a pod in cluster 2. This is the pod in deployment in cluster 2, and now I just wanna ping, I just wanna make an HTTP request to the service. This name is the service, and it's resolved. Okay, contacted its own pod. let's move on. Okay, it contacted cluster 1. We are interested in cluster 3. Of course, I tweaked it a little bit to return a string in the HTTP request. Cluster 2 again, cluster 1, cluster 2. Come on. Wow, cluster 3. Okay, so we have a request to cluster 3. As we can see, our TCP dump in the gateway connected to cluster 1, we didn't receive anything. We received something in the gateway connected to cluster 2, because this traffic is flowing certainly through the newly created gateway. And that's it. If you... I'm done. If you have some comments, I would be happy to know
You
them.
basically are adding a label over the shadow endpoint slices, correct?
Yes.
The work you do in the virtual kubelet is only to add a label on this endpoint slice.
Yeah, is to fetch the addresses from the foreign cluster connection, see what are the shortcuts, which is the cluster I am reflecting to involved in a shortcut, fetch the addresses, build the label, and remap them, and send them already remapped.
Do you think that is possible to be done with a webhook, this change, in order to not to change the code of the virtual kubelet? With creating webhook, when you create the shadow endpoint slice that should be reflected to another cluster, you patch it with your logic to add this label.
Okay,
Because
this would be
if
a
you
way.
can do that, you have not to change the code of the virtual kubelet of Liqo, so the project can be a side project that works with Liqo. And the other interesting things, I think, that is the label in order to tell to the remote cluster to override the IP that it should put on this endpoint slice. That I think that we can merge it in Liqo and have a standard label, probably not with shortcut or what it was the name and this label, but we can agree with another name for the label that it's okay. Because I think that this fact to be able from the central cluster to enforce a specific IP on endpoint slice can be useful in general. So I don't know the other maintainers what are thinking about
agree.
it. But
I agree. And I also think that it's something that we should merge in the main code base. Yeah, I think it can be really useful. And not too aggressive with what we already have inside Liqo.
So if I understand correctly, you feel that the general feature may stay outside Liqo, but this webhook can be part of Liqo.
Not the webhook, the label.
No, the label. Okay.
The label used in the remote cluster, in the leaf cluster, in order to be able to enforce the IP that should be inserted into the endpoint size.
Yes, because doing that you could enforce it manually, if I'm right, no?
Yeah, manually or with whatever
Yeah.
tool you want to use.
Job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really good job.
Do you think that this feature of creating shortcut should be worth as a feature of Liqo? Do you think that it could be something external?
Or who is the question?
Is it for me?
No, it's for the other maintainers. Sorry, no, Gabriele. Okay.
Okay, I think that a feature that can create a connection directly leaf by leaf can be useful. We have a little bit to investigate if the implementation and architecture of this functionality is the best one, or we have to iterate a little bit over it, I think.
Yeah, another thing I was thinking about, I think that this feature is really useful in some cases, in some topologies, but it is not. It cannot be applied with other topologies. For example, if you don't have a consumer with two providers, but one provider with more consumers. So for the moment, I think it's better if we keep it in a separate repository. Then in the future, if we see that people like it and people need it, yeah, for me it's okay to merge it inside Liqo and document it in order to explain clearly that these features support only some topologies.
We can keep this project as a sandbox project or something like that, and then see how the community will see this project. If we can do it webhooks, I think is very clean and easy to integrate.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Gabriele, for the nice presentation. Any other question from the people?
But Francesco, or I don't remember who, maybe has beat me on this. But my question was, what happens when you have a cluster shared by with more consumer? So if you haven't created the shortcut you have created a shortcut with one Liqo federation and a shortcut with another Liqo federation. They remain separate, or they can clash one with the other?
Just to be sure that I understood the question.
Yeah.
You mean the case in which you have just one provider with more consumer that consume from the same provider?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
Oh.
I have a provider that share its resources with more consumer, and so has a lot of resources and want to share it.
Okay.
And the two consumer have their network of clusters, and this provider has a shortcut from one network of clusters and a shortcut from another network cluster. They remain separate, or they clash one with the other?
Okay. At the moment in Liqo, there is no built-in mechanism to guarantee isolation. Okay, if this is the question. If you have more consumer that consume resources from the same cluster, okay, you don't have a way to separate from a networking point of view these pods. I think it will be the theme of the next community meeting because we have a guy that is working on this feature. So you will see in a short time something that you can find interesting, but no, at the moment no, we don't have.
Okay, but this is very interesting, and I think that also as a first step is very good. This shortcut, because it solves a lot of performance problem probably.
But
thank you.
Your suggestion, Alessandro, would be to consider also the case in which we have multiple shortcuts between the same provider to other clusters. So, you know, not all the cluster has to be, the traffic of the cluster has to be rerouted through the tunnel. Is that correct?
Yes, but because these shortcuts for me are very useful, because especially if you use them, if you use Liqo at the edge, when where you have where you have to have a fast performance, because maybe you have an edge cluster that get I don't know, the data from camera from cars that are going on a road, and you have a system for autopilot on the cars. So you have to react very quickly on maybe on the system that control the cars to avoid incident, avoid crash or something like this. So in this case, making the packets going on the central cluster can add this latency that can be very dangerous. But if you have some shortcut, you can maybe have some a better performance. The packet go directly from a cluster to another, and you can have better performance. In some cases, this is really useful. So I'm very interested in this.
Yes. Okay, Gabriele, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that this feature cannot cover a case like that. Am I
If I
right?
can,
Yeah.
okay. I think that there is no problem, because for each shortcut, the connection between the two providers are managed by Liqo, and they have two different gateways. So for each shortcut, there is a different gateway in the provider. So if Liqo assign it the remapped CIDR, it already knows what CIDRs are used and which CIDRs are not used. So it will assign two different CIDRs, and the two shortcuts should not be overlapped. Should be work independently one from the other.
Oh, so maybe it's working.
Yeah. I
Okay,
think
good,
that it should work smoothly. I think that it should work smoothly without problems, but
Okay.
we should test it.
Yeah,
If
okay,
you-
okay.
Okay. I'm not sure, okay, but I think that if you establish the tunnel, okay, it works. The problem is when, which is the problem that has solved Gabriele in an environment when you have just one consumer, sorry. Yeah, you're just one consumer with more provider. The problem is that from a control plane perspective, you need a cluster that knows everything about the other cluster, okay, the other neighbors. So in a case where you have just more consumer with a provider, these consumers are not aware of the other consumer networking setup. So the solution for this, it's possible. It's possible. I also have an idea. We already started working on it some months ago. Then we stopped because we had other priorities. The solution is really similar to the one proposed by Gabriele, but we need an external component, okay, which is not inside the provider anymore, okay? It can be wherever you want. This component need to watch every consumer cluster, okay? Get the information and then apply the correct information in every consumer cluster. It's something possible. We just need to work on it. If you have, my suggestion, if you have a really specific use case, open an issue on GitHub. So we are so that we are aware that someone want a feature instead of another feature, and we can try to prioritize the feature.
Okay,
But
thank you.
Francesco, one question.
Okay.
Because why we need a sort of coordinator? Because each consumer should only communicate its own shortcuts. That in the provider will have two different siders because are signed by Liqo and are not overlapped. So if we have two consumers, one consumer using the method introduced by Gabriele will communicate that the other provider will be reached from the 1061, while the other consumer will say that its own shortcut it's brought 1063.
Okay. But if you use the IP of the pods, it works. I agree. But you need a way to automatize the population of services, the creation of the endpoint slice. Okay. And I think it's quite tricky if you don't have something outside that can push the correct endpoint slices in every cluster. But of course we can discuss.
I cannot visualize the problem in this moment. Okay.
If I can add my 2 cents on this,
Mm-hmm.
when a consumer cluster need to reflect its own endpoint slices, it's gonna look to its own foreign cluster connection, which are the shortcuts that are pushed from that control plane, from that consumer, okay? So it will see only those. So I don't get the problem because I'm not really sure I am in line with you.
Okay.
Because let's make an example. We have two different consumers with which are offloading something to a provider.
Okay.
And then they have both their shortcuts and other providers and stuff, okay? Every shortcut is pushed by the central cluster, by the consumer. So consumer 1 pushes 10 shortcuts between that provider target and something other, okay? The other consumer maybe would push only one shortcut, okay? So when the label is populated, which is the one which will be used to populate endpoint slice and then services, okay? The endpoints which will be present there will be read by the foreign cluster connection, which is the one pushed before.
Okay, but
was I clear?
Maybe I'm not understanding the problem. From what I understood, what we want to achieve is to have a way to let two consumer to communicate directly with a direct tunnel, right? The problem
Two
is
providers.
Two providers.
Two providers, not two consumers.
Two providers, okay.
Two providers, yeah.
No. In case you have two providers, okay, it is not a problem. No, maybe I
Yeah,
didn't
sorry.
understood
Okay, no. We were talking
problem.
about providers, not consumer, right?
Yeah.
I was talking about providers.
I was
Providers,
talking
of course.
about providers. So I
Okay,
have a
okay.
provider that give resources to different consumer. The scenario is maybe I have a cluster. I want to augment my cluster with some other resources because I don't know, these resources as HPC, computing, GPU, or so on. So this provider may give to the consumer GPU computation as a service, and so from its cluster, the provider give resources to different consumer. So every
No,
And
it can work.
so maybe I want to make a shortcut between two provider.
Okay.
Two provider of
Yeah.
same Liqo
Now it's
network.
clear. No. I agree with the guys. Yeah, it can work.
Okay, good.
The only problem I'm seeing here is how it scale with a lot provider cluster. Because when you remap another cluster, you need to consume a big cider, okay? And with a large amount of provider, you can finish with some clusters all the usable cider.
Okay.
So
okay, this has to be tested, but we have to have the big cluster to test, and this is a problem.
With 2 free cluster, it can work. If you have 100 cluster, it can become
can be a problem.
A little problem.
Yes, I agree.
But for many reasons, for the problem of the number of cider, for the problem of the gateway you are spawning, the virtual kubelets you have.
Yeah. Okay. The big problem is to find the right lab, the laboratory with all these clusters.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are almost at the end of the meeting. So if we share again the agenda, we had one more item, which is the date of the next meeting. Our proposal would be to decide now the date so that we can start and broadcasting this in advance and prepare for the agenda. Given that August is almost a month with nothing, at least in most of Southern Europe, we would suggest either July, at the end of July, or directly September. In a preliminary discussion, the maintainers are more for the end of July in order to present a new feature, the security feature, if it is possible, because that would be nice to know a little bit in advance. But we would like to know what the community thinks about this proposal. So if you feel that July 28 is not a good slot, we can move to September.
For me, it's okay. July. It's no.
July.
For me, eh?
Okay, I see also Gabriele say yes. Francesco saying yes. Alessandro saying yes. Okay, so it looks like most of the people agree with end of July. Perfect. Okay, we're almost at the end. Any other question? Proposal, observation? No? So, no observation? Okay. So thank you very much for your time today. You will find the minutes pretty soon and the slides. I will ask Gabriele and Santo to send us the slides so that we can upload on our community repository. And thanks and congratulations for your work. That looks very useful.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.